All right, this is my book synopsis, number 3 for Call of the Wild by Kimberly Ann Johnson. My initial reaction: what am I getting myself into? When I first started reading about her journey, I know she talked a lot about the nervous system, and that is something that I feel like has been at the core of my healing journey so far. Just not even so far, just it's at the core of my healing journey. Having lupus and trying not to let it define me, but also knowing that it is something that I am currently healing from and that I don't think I'm going to have forever. I know it's possible to reverse these things. And just as some people say, like, holding a cup of water that's full feels fine after a few seconds. After a few minutes, it gets a little heavy. After a few hours, it gets to be highly uncomfortable. After about a day, I'm sure my arm would be having a lot of problems. And eventually, if I was holding a full cup of water this heavy, I would have severe issues with my arm. And I feel like using that example when it comes to holding trauma and holding experiences that have stayed in the body. And I've learned through the first book, The Body Keeps the Score, as well as just through my own experience, that the body holds all experiences, regardless if the mind has disassociated or has forgotten or has tried to protect the body by kind of leaving the body in order to protect and survive from certain experiences that have been traumatic. So with that example, just holding trauma for so long can really affect the body and affect the health of the body. So when she started with the nervous system, I was highly intrigued, and she starts out with yoga and nutrition, which are the two things that have changed my life and have changed my journey in healing. What I was initially going into doing yoga for was to just help my joints and do something that was low impact and to keep myself moving, because I started to realize that as I didn't move, that my joints and my bones, that bones can in a way like crystallize and form together in order to protect itself. And I've come to find that if the mind is attacking itself in a way where, again, it's thinking that it's trying to protect the body, but is in dysfunction because it's not performing or doing what it is naturally supposed to do. So eventually the body will catch up to the mind and say, okay, like, if this is what we're doing, then all right. So I do have this feeling that part of my autoimmune dysfunction had to do with the trauma and dysfunction in certain energy centers of my body that were just trying to protect me, really. So it was mind-blowing to begin to read this book and to talk about how the nervous system functions in training the mind, eradicating negative thoughts, but also being able to not just eradicate them, but bring them forth and move through that experience. And I believe that's very much in alignment with what I'm being taught with One Breath Institute and how I want to move forward as a breathwork practitioner. she talks about following the impulse to completion, and how one of my aha moments that I feel like is in such connection with how I want to move forward as a breathwork practitioner is when Kimberly talked about a healing session she was having with the client, and she was talking about how this client was having a lot of issues in her sacral region and reproductive issues and having problems, and she wanted to have children, and she was just feeling blocked and like really just stuck in that area. And as she started to ask her clarifying and introspective questions, she came to find that and just had her breathe through some of those questions, she came to find that her right knee started hurting, that her client's right knee started hurting. And she said, well, have you experienced anything in your life having to do with your right knee? And she said, yeah, you know, back when I was a teenager, I was in a high-level sport, and I injured my right knee, and I wasn't able to play anymore. And when I went into to the doctor to get help, I felt like my voice wasn't heard, and I wasn't being listened to, and I was being told that I'd never be able to do this again, and that I'd have to have medications, and wouldn't be able to function how I was prior. And Kimberly talked her through and said if she asked her if she was open to diving a little bit deeper into this experience with the doctor. And she asked her client, what would you have said to the doctor if you were back in that moment? And the client had an emotional response and was very forward in yelling at the doctor and saying, listen to me, listen to me. And I felt such connection with that. And I immediately went back to the moments that I was with my rheumatoid arthritis doctor at the age of 28 years old, waiting in the waiting room full of people over 70 years old, not feeling like I was supposed to be there, and going into the office and saying, you know, I think that this medication is not helping me. I think it's making me worse, and I feel like immunosuppressant medication is causing more issues for me, and now I have to be on an anti-nausea medication because of the initial medication, and the anti-nausea medication is causing a lot of issues for me. And I had lost like 60 pounds in a span of 2 or 3 months, and I felt myself declining quite quickly, and I felt like my voice wasn't being heard, and I felt like the doctor was very dismissive, and it brought back trauma responses from earlier in my life where I felt like I wasn't listened to, especially by a male role. And that is something that I'm continuing to heal. And so as Kimberly's client was moving through this experience and saying what she wanted to actually say, and breathing through that experience and breathing through the emotions and allowing the emotions to move through her, the client no longer had pain in her knee, and had later reported to Kimberly that she was not having any reproductive issues. And I thought, aha moment right there, that bringing something to completion and allowing time in a safe space to do that, whether it takes one session, whether it takes 2 or 3, whatever that means, and really just not having a commitment to a specific outcome, and really asking clarifying questions in order to get down to the root of something without my own projection of thinking, oh, well, if she's having, sacral issues, she must have had trauma with something that happened to her in that area. Well, maybe it had nothing to do with that. Maybe it had something to do with her knee and the fact that she needed to complete that experience and go through the emotions of that experience fully. And somehow, whether it was through her meridians or whatever it was, really not even having to know that, Kimberly was able to allow the client to complete those emotions and heal in her own way, and allow the innate intelligence inside of her client's body to come to completion how it was supposed to and how it was naturally supposed to. So I thought that was amazing, and it gave me a little bit more confidence in being okay with not always knowing, and just knowing how to ask those clarifying questions, and being comfortable with the uncomfortable, and sitting in that discomfort with my client, and being able to go on that journey with them and hold space with them and allow them a safe space to ask these questions, and knowing that they are safe to express these emotions and experiences with me to completion so that they are able to heal themselves. And main takeaways, I'm just flipping through my favorite parts of the book, and I will also be honest, I am still working through a lot of the parts of this book just as the second book, because a lot of it is hands-on somatic practices where I awaken the inner animal inside of me, and sometimes it can be exhausting. And I know I truly feel that I was called to read this book because the main area of my body that has been tight, and that I had shingles in that nerve ending and that belt of tension, was my solar area. And I am learning through this book that that the fight or flight response can cause the clenching of certain muscles in that specific area. And it was definitely something that I knew, but to see it and to bring words to it just made everything more tangible, and allowed me to work through and receive even more tools to find safety in my body, back into my body, through somatic movement and somatic practices. And one of my favorite ones that I've learned is closing the eyes, and how our eyes are normally sometimes even like looking at a computer or a phone or a television, or even just in daily life, since we're so used to doing that, is having the eyes in the forefront of our body. And I believe, I don't know if she used Haraline, or that there are like two areas of the body. I don't remember what she called them, but like two hemispheres of the body, that there's a front and a back. And she said, close your eyes and notice where your eyes are, and bring the attention of your eyes to like back behind the midline of your body, and really just bring them back. And just by doing that, and practicing and looking around the space before doing it, so that the body knows how much space is behind the body, how much space is in front of the body, looking up and down and side to side, and taking time to really take in the environment, and then doing it and feeling how much space is behind me and in front of me and all around me, so that I can not just come back into my body, but when I'm there, to really feel the space around me, enabling me to integrate not just in my body, but within my body, in my surrounding. And I feel like it's the next step of my journey, because when I was doing yogic exercises, I was able to come back to my body, and I was finding it hard to stay. And I feel like these exercises have truly helped me integrate not just landing back in my body, but to continue to safely live in my body in the surroundings that I'm in, and to be more comfortable in discomfort, be more comfortable in, not even the word comfortable, be more apt to set boundaries with people and be able to speak my truth, be able to live in my body in the surroundings that I'm in, and be able to reshape and reconfigure what my life is if in case there's an area in my environment that isn't in alignment with me anymore. And it's still a journey, but wow, these tools have been so helpful, and I'm learning how to do that for others now too. And as a breathwork practitioner, I really would love to help people find ways and introduce these somatic exercises in order to help them not just land in their body, but live in their body in the environment around them. And the way that it has challenged me, let me tell you what. I'm going to take a breath for that one. So, coming back to the solar area, I have gotten crystals for each energy center of my body, and the one that keeps getting lost and that keeps coming back is the crystal for my solar plexus chakra. And I find that to be very interesting because it is one of my most powerful crystals that I have, the one that is most powerful to me. And I also see that it is a sign for me personally that my personal willpower comes and goes, and that I haven't lost it in quite some time now, and I don't misplace it. And I find that to be very interesting because I find less and less of my power being taken away from me and allowing others to take my power and standing in my power more. And part of that was reading this book, and the animal inside me feels like the solar. It feels like that inner fire, that inner animal that's just and just here. And I know it's a high energy crystal, citrine, but when I did lose it for the first time, I bought a necklace to wear every day. And I've been finding that I haven't worn it as much because it is so high energy, and sometimes it can be almost draining. And I've realized that maybe I'm going through a transition where there are times when I feel like I need it, and other times where I feel like I need a protection crystal or a more calming crystal. And I do feel as if citrine has been such a strong crystal for me to use in my healing journey because it does help me step in my power. But when I stopped wearing it as much, I realized I have that within me, and I always have. And yes, there are wonderful tools outside to help in that growth, but knowing that external tools are never as powerful as the innate power and will that I have inside of myself. And the way that I've been challenged is standing in that power, standing in that will, and the environment around me, the people around me that are still expecting the old version of me or old versions of me. It is a challenge. It has been a challenge. I've started to create boundaries. I've started to speak my feelings and speak out on uncomfortable situations and how others are affecting me, and really moving through that truth without an expectation of the outcome, without trying to please people, so much so in the fear that I won't be liked, in the fear that I'll get fired from my job, in the fear that I'll lose a friendship or not be as close with a family member. And I know now that I need to stand in my power, because if I don't, it's at the detriment to my health. It is at the detriment to my soul and to my vibration. It's as simple as that. But also not, as easily done than it is said. The more I speak about it, the more I stand in that truth. I can't hide from it anymore. And especially because we're in Scorpio season, bringing the shadow into the light and bringing that shadow to the surface, I'm realizing all of the shadows and all of the situations and people and experiences that are coming up that are challenging me to stand in my power. And I feel like that is one of the biggest breakthroughs that I have to overcome in order to walk through that door. And I feel like as I do it, it's helping me become even that more of a better practitioner for breathwork, and really allowing myself to hold more space for people, because I'm holding space for myself. And because I'm standing in my power, it's allowing others to stand in theirs. And if that's an agreement or disagreement with me, that's all right, because as long as I live in my truth, I'm still walking that path. And people will come and people will go, and I will learn more and more when to hold on and when to let go. Let's see, any other favorite parts? I know she talks about like pendulation, just as One Breath Institute does, and that there are natural cycles. It kind of reminded me also of just a lot of signs and things that are saying like, all right, like just as there's a certain flower that blooms, and then like right before it blooms a little more, it goes back in a little bit, and then blooms a little more, and then goes back in a little, and then blooms a little more. There is that natural pendulation. There are the waves that go up and the waves that go down. It's just nature. And the same goes for our experiences in life, and they may always be there, but it is truly about how we react to those responses. And I found that a lot of these tools have helped me respond instead of react in these situations. Calling back one's power, and that was specifically having to do with that client experience. Times. Thought, image, movement, emotion, and sensation. And this helped me so much in visualizing my own experiences through breathwork, my own experiences through meditation, and really just everyday life. And I think it will truly help shape me as a breathwork practitioner in creating an experience for anyone, and being able to dance in the moment more when someone's saying, well, I don't feel anything. Well, is there an image that comes to mind? Is there a movement or a sound, or is there a sensation, because everyone experiences life differently. And it really brought tangible resources for me to use for others as well as myself. Let's see. She dives a little bit into each one. And this was so interesting. In somatic experiencing, we assign the trauma vortices, the things that activate our nervous system and register as a threat, or simply put, the things that feel bad, the color red, and the healing vortices, the things that calm our system and feel good, the color blue. Our inner experience is always swinging back and forth from blue to red. Remember that tracking is the process of paying attention to the breadcrumbs that your body is leaving you in the form of times: thought, image, movement, emotion, and sensation, and follow their trail. When I read that, I had a moment, because I had a dream probably a week prior to reading that, and I was walking in a field on a farm, and there was snow on the ground, and I'm looking out into the distance, and I see this barn and a couple other buildings that were red, but it was more so that they were like hued with like a transparent red like film over them. And then as I got closer to them, and I had an interaction with someone that I realized I didn't quite feel like myself, but I was still having an experience with someone. I turned back and the same exact buildings were there, but they were filmed and hued with the color blue. And I tried, saying like, hey, did you notice that? Did you see that? And no response. So it's just very interesting that that there are signs telling me that that's just a natural thing, and that just following my felt sense, following my body, following my intuition and really tracking the breadcrumbs and seeing how I'm experiencing my life without ignoring my feelings, my sensations, the images that come to mind, and really live in my body and the experiences that I'm having, regardless of any uncomfortable situations, and knowing when to stay and when to let go. From a nervous system perspective, when you are in a state of internal chaos or high system level activation, you will retrieve information to affirm that your internal state is accurate. If your nervous system is always sending you signals that you're not safe, you may find yourself gathering proof that the world is not safe or people are not trustworthy, and trying to enlist others into a more realistic point of view that the world is going to shit, for example. The world will reflect the state of chaos and high activation back to you, and it will seem like the objective truth. Your internal state will create a story and retrieve information to confirm that state. But it's not just an individual preference or particular trauma history that keeps many of us living in red. Our intelligent systems are wired to protect us for our survival, meaning we are primed to notice the red. Potential dangers are going to draw our attention more strongly so that we may pay attention and can do what's necessary to stay alive. The problem is that all kinds of things that are not life-threatening, like our email inboxes, traffic, and daily news, have started to register in our systems as threats, and so we begin to live in a chronic state of activation without realizing it. I've realized that and for quite some time have realized that is how I was living for over 25 years, and that just driving in traffic was highly activating, and just little things. And I'm coming to find the more exercises that I do and the more I come back into my body and am grateful every day and am just able to live in more love, light, truth, and recognizing all feelings and having all feelings come through, that I'm able to navigate more clearly through life and allow these situations to not be so activating. And it is a process, and it has been challenging, but it has been highly rewarding as well. And I look forward to incorporating these practices and these experiences and these tools in order to help others that have been experiencing activation and traumatic responses and living in red. And I'm really here to hold space for them, and I'm so very grateful for having found this book. Thank you, One Breath Institute.